So I really commonly hear this idea that instead of relying on motivation or waiting for motivation to come, you should just be disciplined. And I'm going to talk about why this is fucking terrible advice. I'm going to talk about why people even say this, like how did we get to this idea? Debunk some general myths about discipline and how it works, because even the people that seem to be most fucking famous for talking about it get stuff wrong constantly about it and kind of conflate the idea. And then 3, kind of maybe summing up a little bit how it actually works, but more so the first 2, because that 3rd one's kind of complicated to do. So why do people get here? Like, why is this an idea that people arrive on, that we should not rely on motivation and just be disciplined? So I think the really big one is that this is just kind of a comforting idea if you're somebody that's struggled with motivation for a long time. If you're somebody who has struggled to access like good quality, sustainable motivation that gets you where you want to be, it's really nice to have this idea that, oh, I don't need motivation. I just can use discipline. Instead of fixing your motivational issues, you can just shift to this mindset that says that they don't exist. That's really appealing to a lot of people. And to a lot of people, this makes sense. But I think that the reason it makes sense is very motivated a lot of the time. The second one is that it's just part of an identity that people really, really like. When you see those people on podcasts where they're talking in really dramatic ways and about how the importance of discipline and like making it almost a fucking stoic philosophy speech, they talk about it in a way that is just so appealing to a lot of men, especially, I think, where it's the identity you want, right? You want to be the disciplined person. That's just a cooler thing to be than the person that needs feelings to get somewhere. So the identity is really, really appealing of it. And the third reason we get there, I think, is kind of a simple and obvious, but easy to forget one, which is that we learn by watching. Right? And you can't really watch motivation, but you can watch the things that make up discipline. You can watch hard work. You can watch consistency. You can watch people, work late hours. Like that kind of shit is easy to witness, but you can't really witness the emotions that are going on underneath. So we're trying to mimic behavior that we can observe, because that's so much easier to do than to extrapolate feelings that lead to that behavior. So these things kind of come together and lead people to this idea that motivation isn't something that you can actively pursue improving, and what you should just do is be disciplined instead. Let's kind of talk about some myths that come out of that, right? So the first one is, the main idea, right? That motivation is something you should stop relying on. You should be disciplined instead, right? Motivation's a part of discipline. You have to have an incentive to bring out all of the skills that make discipline, right? Like discipline is less something you can be, and it's more something that describes what you're doing, right? Like you can't get up and be like, I'm going to do discipline today. It's made up of a bunch of different things, and motivation, like there has to be motivation to apply those things. And there has to be beliefs that applying those things is going to work out for you. So motivation isn't something that you can choose between when it comes to discipline or motivation. It's literally part of it. It doesn't exist without it. Also, a second idea that comes out of this is this idea that that discipline is all about willpower. And no, it's not. Because a really important part of discipline, maybe the most important part of discipline, is consistency, and willpower is limited. And limited things are not consistent. They're not reliable. So it can't be it. Like people aren't disciplined strictly through burning through willpower, unless, right, which leads to the third idea, which is this idea that, oh, well, that's because disciplined people just have lots of willpower. So there is some evidence to suggest that willpower is kind of this resource that you can increase in capacity a little bit. I'm not going to subscribe to that for the purpose of this video yet, because I'm not confident in my understanding of that research yet. But the vast majority of how willpower works is that you want to use it efficiently, right? You don't want to use willpower to steer a car that is constantly wobbling. You want to use willpower to correct the car when it drifts off course every once in a while, right? Like that ability to manually handle the vehicle, the wheel of your vehicle, that is an efficient use of willpower. But just pushing and tunneling and burning through everything is not. And that's why most people burn out. And the reason why people can remain disciplined is because they're using willpower efficiently, not because they're using it more, because they just have an infinite size fuel tank of it. Another idea is that discipline is kind of related. They're all related, honestly, so I'm going to stop fucking saying this. Number 4, disciplined people just do the hard thing. Okay, but how are you deciding what's hard? Like, things are relatively difficult for every person. When you see a disciplined person, like we all agree that going to the gym sucks, right? But what we're actually describing is very, very different. I can prove this to you. There are people in California and people in Canada who both agree that in January it gets cold. Like, they're not even close to describing the same fucking temperature. Like, people in California actually think that 20°C is cold. They probably put fucking ice trays in the refrigerator. It's what's cold and what's not, and what's easy and what's difficult is so relative to the fucking person. So this idea that disciplined people do the hard thing, well, no, they're doing the same thing as other people. How hard it is for them and how easy it is for you is a different matter entirely. And then the other one is what these four kind of come into, which is the idea that discipline is a mindset or it's an attitude. No, it's not. It's a combination of a bunch of different skills. It's a combination of a bunch of underlying like emotional issues. It's not a mindset thing, right? Mindsets are, I'm just going to do a different video on mindsets, honestly, but it's not all mindset. It's a combination of all this stuff together. So let's kind of sum this up. Discipline isn't a thing you do. It's something that can describe the way you behave. Discipline is the result of... I think a nuke is about to land, so I'm going to try and finish this video. So summing this up, discipline isn't a thing you can just do. It's kind of something that describes your behavior when a bunch of stuff comes together. Discipline is the result of skills, it's the result of motivations, it's the result of resources. And when those all come together in that specific way, that's when you get discipline. That's what discipline looks like, is when that stuff is all kind of lining you up in the right direction. It's not a individual skill that you practice. It's not a mindset. It's kind of a, what I'm going to call like emergent quality, okay? There's no single way to approach discipline. It has to come from a lot of different things. Your skills, by your motivations, by your thoughts, by your resources. There's no one single mindset approach to being disciplined. It's worth thinking about it as something that is emerging from all of these underlying qualities. So stop simplifying it and making it about a fucking lifestyle. I think that the main idea of discipline is consistency. It's not about it's not about willpower. It's not about any of this other stuff. I would understand discipline as effectively consistency. Consistency is not the same thing, but I think that's a useful way to start thinking about it. If you're trying to improve in discipline, is to think about how can I get more consistent rather than how can I be more disciplined. And motivation is an essential part of discipline. It is what determines if you see a reason at all to bring forth any of the stuff that we've been talking about and stay consistent in that way. So you can't ignore motivation when approaching discipline. If you constantly lack motivation and you're constantly trying to burn through everything by saying it doesn't matter and I just got to have goodwill, you are going to burn the fuck out. I promise you will burn out. This isn't a consistent way to handle anything. Especially if you work with this idea and you hit that burnout and you don't see that burnout as like a logical outcome of the way that you're handling this approach to discipline inefficiently, you're going to start blaming yourself, which is why I've seen it so many fucking times in coaching work. The amount of people that have this really violent binary back and forth between feeling really disciplined and just shaming the shit out of themselves. I think that's a really big risk to look out for. So yes, motivation does matter, and motivational work is complicated, and it sucks that it's complicated, but you can't power through it by just pretending that the identity of being the guy that talks on podcasts with his hands together in black and white fucking video filters is what's going to make your life amazing and successful and make you disciplined in the way you want to be. So yeah, keep that all in mind. If you like this, please make sure that you follow and check out my website and subscribe and all that shit that people on social media want you to do. Thanks for watching.